When Ivanka Trump called her unfit, Jasmine Crockett didn't throw a single insult back. Instead, she reached for a recording that instantly froze the room. The Dallas Convention Center was packed. Rows of dark-suited executives, entrepreneurs, with glossy name badges and reporters scribbling in notepads. This wasn't just another leadership summit. It had the charged atmosphere of a place where reputations could change in a single afternoon. Ivanka stepped onto the stage in a cream-colored suit, her voice smooth and confident as she opened with remarks on innovation and leadership. For 10 minutes, the crowd listened politely, cameras clicking. Then, her tone shifted. In politics, she said, "We have to tell the difference between those who bring real solutions and those who bring theatrics. And frankly, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett has shown herself unfit to represent her district." Loud isn't the same as effective. The air shifted, pen scratched, cameras zoomed, and glances flickered across the audience. Within minutes, clips of the remark were circulating online with captions like, "Ivanka Trump just called Jasmine Crockett unfit." Some said Ivanka had planned the moment. Others thought she'd spoken in frustration. Either way, the soundbite was everywhere on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, radio, and local TV. Political commentators scrambled to react. A few blocks away, Crockett sat in her office as an aide played the clip on a phone. She listened silently, expression unreadable, before murmuring, "Interesting." Her tone carried no outrage, just calculation. She added, "Let's make sure we're ready when they call." By evening, Crockett's name was trending across platforms. Supporters warned Ivanka had picked the wrong fight. Critics doubled down. What no one in that packed ballroom knew was that Crockett had been holding on to something that could flip the entire narrative in seconds. The real turning point wasn't going to happen on that Dallas stage. It would come later under the glare of studio lights, with a microphone inches from her face. Some called it calculated, others disagreed. Maybe, but you don't drop a line like that unless you're ready for the storm. That follows. What followed was the domino effect of a soundbite in the digital age. By nightfall, pundits were parsing every syllable, every pause, every flicker of expression from Ivanka Trump's remarks. Morning shows teased the clip for their lead segments. Political podcasts ripped up their scripts to record emergency episodes. At Crockett's campaign office, the first calls came within an hour of the summit's end. Local stations wanted her live, on camera. National networks wanted her for the morning circuit. Her communications director, Lydia Ramos, stood in the middle of the office, two phones ringing in her hands, thumbs flying over her own screen too. "Text Crockett. We need to set a tone fast." At home, Crockett finally played the unedited clip from start to finish. Her husband Marcus had just set a plate of barbecue in front of her. She listened, fork suspended halfway to her mouth. Marcus watched, bracing for anger. It never came. She set her food aside, unlocked her phone, and scrolled through her audio files. It didn't take long. "You remember that meeting back in March?" she asked. "The one about the small business relief amendments?" Marcus replied, "Exactly," she said, cutting him off with a faint smile. "I think it's time people heard what was said in that room." Meanwhile, on talk radio in Austin, a host replayed the clip twice in 10 minutes, his co-host inviting callers to weigh in. Politics as usual lore. Did Ivanka just open a door she can't close? The phone lines lit up. In Washington, two aides from opposite parties texted each other the same link to the Dallas footage. "If Crockett hits back smart, this is all anyone talks about for days," one typed. The other replied, "She will. Online." The split was immediate. Some high-profile influencers echoed Ivanka's jab, calling Crockett all-style. No results. Others pushed back hard, especially small business owners. A post from a San Antonio shopkeeper went viral. "My store was saved by the very bill Crockett fought for." I don't care what you think of her politics, she shows up within hours. Crockett's team booked her for a live evening interview on KDFW, the local Fox affiliate. Lydia texted the station. She'll be there in person. No phone. The choice was deliberate. Viewers needed to see her, not just hear her. At the summit venue, Ivanka's team slipped out a side exit. Reporters called questions. Staffers smiled and kept moving. In the SUV, a communications aide broke the silence. It's blowing up. It'll pass, Ivanka said, sliding her phone into her bag. But it didn't pass. Not that night. Not the next day. 2 women in the public eye, sharp words caught on camera. And the quiet possibility Crockett was about to answer in a way no one expected. That was too good for the media to let go, as KDFW's news director slotted her into the evening rundown. The anchor rehearsed the question that mattered. What are you going to do about it? In the green room, under the weight of studio lights, Crockett sat still. No scrolling, no fidgeting, just hands folded in her lap, eyes fixed on the muted TV in the corner. Sharon Lyles, the anchor, was known for asking questions that peeled people open without raising her voice. "Stay on message," Lydia murmured at her side. Calm, collected, focused, Crockett gave a small smile. "Don't worry, I've got this," the floor manager signaled. Crockett rose, straightened her blazer, and walked onto the set with an easy stride. She shook Sharon's hand, took her seat, and carried in her pocket the thing that was about to flip the entire story. The camera swung into position, red lights glowing. Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett sat poised. "Thank you for coming in tonight." Sharon began evenly. "My pleasure," Crockett replied, her voice steady. Sharon wasted no time. Earlier today, at the Business Leadership Summit, Ivanka Trump called you unfit to represent your district and accused you of being all theatrics, no substance. What's your response? Crockett didn't rush. She stayed silent for a moment, not stalling, but making it clear she would answer on her own terms. Finally, she spoke. "Well, Sharon, I believe in letting my work speak for itself, okay? But when someone misrepresents that work, I believe in setting the record straight." "How do you plan to do that?" Sharon asked. Crockett slowly reached for her phone, unlocked it, and scrolled. Then, holding it close to the mic, she said, "I'd like your viewers to hear something." A faint click had suddenly Ivanka. Trump's voice filled the studio. "I have to commend Congresswoman Crockett," the recording said. Her approach to the Small Business Relief Amendment showed a level of bipartisan cooperation we need more of. She was instrumental in getting both sides to the table, and the result is a bill that will help thousands of entrepreneurs. Lasted less than 20 seconds. Silence followed. "That was Ivanka Trump?" Sharon asked. "Yes," Crockett confirmed. "From a closed-door policy meeting in March, the same meeting where we finalized the Small Business Relief Bill. I've kept the recording for my own records. Since she questioned my fitness in public, it's only fair the public hears what she said in private." "Have journalists verified this recording?" Sharon pressed. "They will," Crockett said. Calmly, "I'll provide it to every outlet that asks. It's the original file unedited." In the control room, producers were already flagging the clip for replay. This was the kind of moment that could turn a local interview into national headlines. Crockett didn't gloat. She moved on, explaining the bill's rollout, qualifications, and impact on small businesses. The tone was more civics lesson than counterattack. Near the end, Sharon circled back. "Do you think Ivanka Trump owes you an apology, Crockett?" Smiled, not smug, but certain. "I'm not here for apologies, Sharon. I'm here for results. The truth speaks for itself." The camera light blinked off. Crockett shook Sharon's hand and walked out without another word by the time her car left the parking lot. The clip was already spreading online. Viewers were posting captions like "She came prepared" and "Receipt Queen." Within minutes, Ivanka and Crockett were trending together nationwide. Inside the newsroom, a producer leaned over to another. "We're replaying that every half hour until midnight." The recording was simple, just Ivanka's clear voice praising the woman she had insulted hours earlier. No theatrics. No noise. No way to spin it without proof. By nightfall, national reporters had seized the story. The frenzy had begun. Within 45 minutes, CNN had it on air. By nightfall, MSNBC's primetime lineup was running a split-screen Ivanka at the Dallas summit, calling Crockett unfit on one side, and Ivanka in a recording praising her bipartisan work on the other. At Crockett's office, Lydia's phone buzzed nonstop with texts from allies, journalists, and even opponents. "That was surgical," one lawmaker messaged. Another simply wrote, "Well played." Crockett stayed off social media. She sat in her living room, feet on the coffee table, sipping water while her husband flipped through channels. "You're everywhere," he said. She shrugged. "That's not the point. The point is that people see the truth for themselves." Checkers quickly got to work. Was the audio genuine? Could it be independently verified? Within an hour, one outlet confirmed the meeting had been attended by at least a dozen people from both parties, several of whom remembered Ivanka making the remarks. She said it. One attendee told the Dallas Morning News. "I remember thinking at the time, well, that's unexpected." Crockett's timing had been lethal, releasing the recording just hours after. Ivanka's attack ensured it dominated the same news cycle, leaving no time for her team to set a counter-narrative. In a popular D.C. bar for Hill staffers, televisions replayed the moment on loop. "That's how you do it," a young staffer muttered to a friend. One clip, no rant, just proof. Ivanka's camp stayed quiet, no statement, no tweets, no interviews. A single anonymous source claimed the comment was taken out of context, but few cared. People weren't interested in nuance. They were reacting to the contradiction. Cable panels debated it. One conservative commentator called the praise polite diplomacy. A progressive panelist shot back, "You don't call someone instrumental in front of bipartisan colleagues unless you mean it." Late-night hosts piled on, airing the clips back-to-back for laughs. Requests for Crockett interviews poured in. But she declined. "I've made my point," she told Lydia. "If they want policy, I'm here. If they want drama, they can look elsewhere." Still, the clip took on a life of its own. Supporters made memes of Crockett holding a phone with the caption, "Always record the meeting." Small business owners shared their own stories tied to her relief bill. Even apolitical viewers said they respected her fact-based approach. Behind the scenes, newsrooms raced to confirm the audio before morning. By sunrise, it wasn't just a Dallas story yet, was national. Morning shows opened with the split-screen footage. The New York Times pushed a breaking news alert. Crockett counters Trump criticism with rare audio from policy meeting. KDFW's newsroom phones rang nonstop as national networks begged for the raw file. Sharon Lyles, the anchor present during the reveal, declined most interview requests, saying, "This isn't about me. It's about what was said." Reporters tracked down meeting attendees. A Republican staffer confirmed the praise word for word. CNN obtained official meeting notes referencing remarks of appreciation for Crockett's amendment. The Associated Press sent the audio to an independent lab, which confirmed there was no sign of splicing. The story was airtanned, unstoppable. Analysts had examined the file for compression artifacts or signs of digital tampering. Their verdict was clear. It was an authentic, continuous recording. Meanwhile, in Jasmine Crockett's Dallas office, Lydia Ramos sat at her desk, fielding calls from national reporters. She had one strict rule for every conversation. "We'll share the file, but we won't add commentary beyond what Congresswoman Crockett has already said." It was deliberate. They didn't want to appear as if they were milking the moment. This was about truth, not a victory lap. In Washington, both Democrats and Republicans found themselves cornered by journalists. "Do you believe the recording is real?" one reporter asked a senator. "It's pretty hard to fake something like that," he said. "I've worked with both of them. If that's Ivanka's voice, she's got some explaining to do." The frenzy wasn't just political, it was cultural. Entertainment outlets treated it like a celebrity feud. TikTok creators layered captions over the clip. "When someone lies about you, but you kept the receipts." On Instagram, a photo of Crockett calmly scrolling to the file had 1 million likes by midday at Trump HQ. The mood was tense. Advisors huddled in a conference room with the TV on mute. "We can't ignore it anymore," one aide said. "If we don't respond, it looks like we're admitting it." Another countered, "If we do respond, we keep it alive for another 3 days." Ivanka wasn't in the room. She was on a flight to Miami, but her phone buzzed with updates from staff. Crockett, unfazed, stuck to her schedule. She met with local entrepreneurs, listened to concerns about supply chain costs. And when a man told her, "You handled yourself with class," she politely redirected the conversation back to his business. Still, the shift in perception was obvious. In hours, she'd gone from defensive to holding the high ground, and the reason was simple. People could hear the truth for themselves. That afternoon, NBC News confirmed what most suspected. 3 independent sources who attended the meeting verified the recording's accuracy. By 3 p.m., even commentators who had backed Ivanka were urging her to clarify her remarks. One tweeted, "If this is the same person you praised in March, maybe calling her unfit isn't the best look." From her desk, Lydia watched the tide turn. The recording was doing all the talking, but as more outlets confirmed the details, the story was snowballing into something Ivanka's team couldn't control. Cultural flashpoints spilling beyond politics. Twitter flooded with clips, some slowed down with dramatic music, others captioned, "When you bring facts to a feelings fight." Instagram Reels paired Ivanka's March praise alongside her new criticism, racking up millions of views. TikTok exploded with parody skits, including one with a faux Crockett holding a phone while a friend played Ivanka absurd, funny, and brutally effective. In 6 hours, it hit 2.8 million views. Hashtags like #ReceiptQueen and #CrockettKeepsReceipts didn't just trend, they dominated. Used in everything from political debates to petty workplace clapbacks. A Phoenix user posted a coworker's contradictory email chain with the caption, "Channeling my inner Jasmine Crockett." The clip spread into Facebook groups, small business forums, and even late-night monologues. One comedian joked, in March, Ivanka was Crockett's biggest fan. In August, she's calling her unfit. Somebody needs a calendar. The audience laughed, but the jab landed in Crockett's office. Lydia read through a growing list of interview requests. "Trevor from Good Morning America is calling again," she told Crockett. "No," Crockett replied instantly. "This isn't a tour, it's a moment to remind people why they need to pay attention." Still, the momentum was undeniable. A strategist texted Lydia, "She just jumped 15 points in favorability overnight. That never happens in 24 hours. Lydia didn't reply, but she knew this wasn't luck. It was the result of meeting a public attack with cold, unfiltered truth. Armed with undeniable proof, Crockett left little room for spin. Meanwhile, Ivanka Trump was trending online, and not in a flattering way. Even her own supporters were divided. Some insisted circumstances had changed since March. Others admitted the optics were disastrous. A conservative influencer summed it up bluntly. "This is why you don't attack unless you've got your own receipts. Otherwise, here we are." Crockett's allies weren't just defending her, they were celebrating her composure. Instagram lit up with memes showing her calmly scrolling on her phone in the studio. One read, "Unbothered. prepared, dangerous. Another paired a still of Ivanka from the summit with the caption, "When you forget, she records everything." The online buzz only grew louder. News outlets began publishing think pieces about a new era of political accountability, where technology makes it harder for public figures to rewrite history. One columnist noted, "In an age where nearly every meeting is recorded, the truth always resurfaces, usually at the worst time for the one who tried to bury it." By nightfall, Crockett had gained over 200,000 new followers across her platforms. Her team avoided outright gloating, but posted a sharp reminder on Twitter. March versus August, receipts don't expire. Ivanka's camp finally released. A short statement around 8 p.m. While I respect anyone who works toward bipartisan solutions, I also reserve the right to critique performance when it changes over time. My comments reflect my current perspective. The vague language only fueled more speculation. Crockett ignored the statement publicly, attending a small fundraiser for a literacy program instead. When told she was trending everywhere, she smiled. "I'd rather the bill trend, people. Need to know how it works." But by then, the moment had outgrown the bill entirely. She had become a cultural example of how to handle a public attack. Stay calm, present evidence, and let the public connect the dots. Inside Ivanka's Miami headquarters the next morning, tension was thick. Staffers hunched over laptops, watching. Coverage scrolling polls and seeing Crockett's face paired with Ivanka's conflicting March and August statements. The contrast was damning. Communications Director Glenn Avery spoke first, voice tight. "If we don't start shaping the narrative now, we lose another 2 days." A younger aide disagreed. "Every time we respond, the clip plays again and more people see it for the first time." The problem wasn't just the contradiction. It was the clarity of the evidence. The audio was clean. No ambiguity, no fuzzy quality to exploit. One advisor suggested Ivanka call Crockett privately to smooth things over, but Glenn dismissed it instantly. If she wanted this to go away, she wouldn't have played it on live TV. Meanwhile, in Washington, reporters swarmed outside a donor meeting, shouting questions. Ivanka offered no answers, just a tight-lipped smile, and walked inside. That silent clip replayed on evening news with commentary about her refusal to address the recording. Back in Miami, Glenn settled on a new approach. Draft a longer statement framed around changing circumstances. It wouldn't deny the recording, but would subtly question Crockett's recent performance. A careful attempt to shift the conversation without reigniting the fire. Ivanka's latest statement fell short of her earlier promise. The aim had been to acknowledge her praise for Crockett in March without admitting the current criticism was unfair. But when the draft landed on Ivanka's desk, she hesitated. "The problem," she said slowly, "is that it forces me to rehash her March accomplishments." That just keeps her win in the spotlight. Her pause reignited debate within the team. Some advised letting the story die naturally. Others warned that silence might look like an admission she'd contradicted herself. In the end, Ivanka compromised. She approved a shorter version of the previous night's statement, adding only, "I wish her the best in her continued work for the people of Texas." It was a polite flourish, but to political watchers, it read like an attempt to shut the conversation down. Unfortunately for her, it didn't work. Cable news dissected the wording, pointing out how it sidestepped the main issue. On social media, users mocked the changing circumstances excuse, posting memes that read, "Translation, I said it. But now, I don't like it." Crockett's team immediately noticed the shift. "They're trying to wrap it up." Lydia told staff during a quick meeting. "Good. We won't add fuel. We've got other work to do." That afternoon, Crockett went live on Instagram not to discuss the controversy, but to announce a new community grant program. The comments section still buzzed with references to the interview, with supporters posting "Legend always," "Receipts," and "Class act." She smiled, read a few, and stayed focused on the grant for Ivanka's team. This was the most frustrating part. Crockett refused to engage in back and forth. Without her participation, they couldn't frame it as an ongoing feud. She had dropped the recording and moved on, leaving them to explain the gap between her past praise and present criticism. "We can't win a fight. She's not fighting," Glenn said in a private call that evening. What Ivanka's camp didn't realize was that this wasn't Lakit, was the result of a decision Crockett made months earlier. The recording wasn't an accidental capture. It was deliberate. Back in March, during the final drafting of the Small Business Relief Bill, Crockett had attended a closed-door meeting in Washington with lawmakers, policy advisors, and high-profile guests, including Ivanka Trump. The meeting was cordial, even productive. Ivanka praised Crockett's willingness to negotiate across the aisle. It could have faded into the background of countless political meetings, except Crockett hit record. The moment she walked in, she'd learned early in her career that in politics, praise in private often turned into public criticism, and context could be twisted. The recording wasn't for revenge, was for accuracy. At first, only Lydia knew. The file sat buried on her phone, labeled only with the meeting date. Months later, when the Dallas Summit guest list leaked, Lydia noticed Ivanka was on the schedule. "Think she'll bring you up?" she asked. Crockett raised an eyebrow. "If she does, I'll be ready." She wasn't looking for a fight. Her focus was on securing the bill's final funding phase. But she also knew that silence can give others space to rewrite history. When Ivanka's comments hit the news, Crockett didn't respond immediately. She finished her meetings, went home, and played the March recording. The contrast was glaring. Minutes later, Lydia called. "Every outlet in Texas wants you tonight. National networks too. What's the plan?" "One interview. Local live. And we're playing it." Crockett replied it was risky. Critics could spin it as opportunistic, but for Crockett, it wasn't about attacking Ivanka. It was about stopping a false narrative in its tracks. "If she wants to critique my work, that's fair," she told Lydia. "But you can't erase what you've already said. That's not how this works." Her press assistant didn't even know about the recording until 10 minutes before they left for the studio. "You're really going to play it?" they asked, half in disbelief. Crockett nodded. "We're not shouting. We're just telling the truth. We weren't throwing insults. We were letting the truth speak for itself." Crockett knew the moment would hit harder because it came without warning. No teasers on social media. No hints she was sitting on something big. The public and Ivanka would hear it at the same time, in the same way. Looking back, Lydia realized that's what made it so powerful. It wasn't just the content of the recording. It was the surprise, paired with Crockett's steady delivery. She didn't look angry or rattled on camera. She looked like someone who had walked in knowing exactly what she wanted to say. When the clip went viral after the interview, Crockett didn't rush to chase the spotlight. She turned down most national media requests, kept her schedule, and kept the conversation on policy, not the drama. That restraint made her more credible, especially to people who didn't normally follow politics. She could have milked it. One Dallas columnist wrote, but she let the facts do the heavy lifting. Her decision to record that March meeting wasn't random. She understood how political narratives are made, and destroyed a compliment today could become an attack tomorrow. Without a record, you were at the mercy of someone else's version. She admitted privately to Lydia she hadn't expected to use the recording so soon, if ever. "But if it's a choice between letting someone rewrite my work or setting the record straight," she said, "I'll always choose the latter." The dust was settling in her own camp, but in Washington, the conversation was just heating up. The recording wasn't just awkward for Ivanka, it was rippling through Congress. The next morning, the Capitol buzzed. It wasn't the usual legislative gossip, but talk of how fast Crockett had turned an attack into a win. Staffers lingered by doorways, trading reactions. A Republican aide heading into a budget committee meeting muttered, "You've got to admit that was clean." His colleague smirked. Lesson learned. Don't say anything in March you can't defend in August. In committee rooms, the story became a cautionary tale. Lawmakers who'd been burned by misquotes or selective edits admired how Crockett had kept control. She hadn't let her opponent dictate the terms of the conversation. The Speaker of the House dodged direct questions about the recording but praised any member who stayed. Focused on delivering results, a subtle nod to Crockett without wading into the feud. Not everyone was impressed. Some on the far right called the reveal petty and accused her of staging the moment. But the criticism didn't stick there. Was no editing, no messy timeline, just two statements months apart. Cable news ran with it. A CNN analyst compared Crockett's approach to a lawyer presenting airtight evidence in court. On Fox News, even a skeptical commentator admitted the contrast was politically damaging. Back in Dallas, Lydia began getting calls from lawmakers. In other states, not about the drama, but about the small business relief bill. "We saw the interview," one congressman said. "Can you walk me through how you built bipartisan support for that amendment?" For Ivanka's team, the fallout was harder to manage. Donors wanted reassurance, worried the story was drowning out her other work. A scheduled Senate subcommittee appearance now risked being hijacked by questions about the recording. Crockett, meanwhile, stayed the course. She attended a rural infrastructure subcommittee meeting that week, speaking on broadband access and funding distribution. When reporters outside asked if she had anything more to say about Ivanka's comments, she gave the same answer as before. The work speaks for itself. Inside the Capitol cafeteria, two junior staffers from opposing parties shared a lunch table. She just earned herself a ton of political capital. One said, the other nodded. Yeah, but now people will expect her to defend like that every time. They weren't wrong. Crockett's deft handling of the incident had raised expectations among allies and heightened scrutiny from opponents. Some wondered whether she could maintain that same composure and precision under future attacks. The recording itself sparked quieter but meaningful ripples. A few younger lawmakers began openly discussing recording their own meetings, not to leak, but to shield themselves from mischaracterizations. When asked if he'd do the same, one veteran senator smirked. "Let's just say I'm suddenly a lot more aware of where my phone is." By week's end, the story's heat had cooled, but the aftershocks remained. Crockett's approval ticked up. Her fundraising saw a small but noticeable bump from donors nationwide. And in political strategy circles, her response was already being dissected as a textbook case of controlling a narrative without overplaying it. In a closed-door staff meeting, Crockett reflected, "You can't control what people say about you, but you can control whether it sticks. The truth always has weight if you let it speak." Outside the Capitol, everyday people who barely followed politics were left with a simpler impression. If you've got the truth, hold it steady and let it do the work. For them, the drama between Ivanka Trump and Jasmine Crockett wasn't about party lines. It was about how you respond when your credibility is put on trial. Across coffee shops, barbershops, and break rooms, people repeated the same takeaways. Sometimes the strongest counterpunch is proof. A teacher in Des Moines told her civics class, "Document your work. You can prove what you've done? No. One can erase it." At a Fresno farmer's market, two vendors traded comments between customers. She didn't argue. She didn't get emotional, one said. She just let the tape play. The other laughed. "That's the poker face I wish I had." Crockett's approach: no insults, no marathon pressers. Just a short clip that spoke louder than speeches, reminded people that hostility doesn't have to be met with hostility. For her, it wasn't about winning a political skirmish, it was about guarding the integrity of her work. Put your time into something real, and you have to protect it, she told high school students a week later. Because someone, somewhere, will try to rewrite your role in it. One student lingered afterward. "I'm not into politics," they admitted, "but I liked how you didn't just call her a liar. You showed what happened and let people figure it out." Crockett smiled. "That's because I'm not trying to win an argument. I'm trying to keep the record straight." Commentators noted her balance, standing firm without feeding the drama. A Dallas Morning News columnist wrote, "Her restraint was as strategic as the recording itself." Even Ivanka's critics admitted the move was disciplined. She didn't rush out in the first hour after the attack. She waited for the right platform, the right moment, the right delivery. And in doing so, she turned the truth itself into the headline. Soon, pulling a Crockett became shorthand in offices for documenting a conversation just in case. The clip became more than a political moment, became part of everyday vocabulary. There was another takeaway too: the power of calm under provocation. Crockett could have gone on the offensive, but she chose to defend without theatrics, elevating her reputation in the process. Weeks later, people were still sharing the clip. Whenever conversations about accountability arose, the moment proved that how you handle a single confrontation can ripple far beyond the news cycle. Crockett, meanwhile, got back to work: committee meetings, calls, bill markups. Every so often, someone would stop her in an airport or grocery store. "I saw that interview. You handled it perfectly." She'd thank them, then move on. For her, it was never about winning the internet or humiliating a critic. It was about showing, quietly and clearly, that truth doesn't need a spotlight, only a chance to be heard. So if there's one lasting lesson, it's this: document your work. Know your worth. And when the time comes, let the facts speak. You don't need to raise your voice if you have the truth in your hands.